If souls transmigrated, then the human population should be constant. A viewer says there's no empirical evidence for rebirth, right? There is no controlled study that provides any sort of verifiable proof for past life memories under scientific conditions. This beyond science argument is a logical fallacy.
And it is not escapism, it's a fact. You can't measure it. Namaste. My name is Bidhan. 2012 is when I chanced upon Upanishads, and it had a profound impact on my life. Since then, I have dreamt to bring the key aspects of Upanishads in a manner which is simple, relatable, and implementable in our daily lives. So here we are with a set of videos to make spirituality simple. So we are back with new set of questions.
Yes, Vedant, and it's good to be back.
Great.
Continuing our conversation.
Let's do that.
Right? So I'm going to read word for word a comment or a question that we had from a viewer. How about karma, that is material? It's hitchhiking on Jivatma, which is non-material, flying through space, which is material, entering another body several years later. Is that true?
First of all, there's a lot of sarcasm involved.
I sense that, but I was interested to see how we would answer this.
All right. So the query is that how come something which is non-material, which is karma or a soul or anything of those kinds, how does it interact with a material body and then disappears and travels through material space and comes back into the material body? So it's not making sense to the viewer, I think, what he's trying to say. We can take an analogy, simple analogy to understand this. It's like asking, then how come the software which is not made up of same material as a hardware computer interacts with the computer? It interacts or it doesn't interact? Is the software made up of same material as a computer is made up of? No. Software is not made up of matter.
Yeah.
Right? But it interacts with the hardware and produces results. And when the hardware crashes, you can always take the memory card or the memory from one hardware to another hardware. Isn't it?
Right.
So what is so complicated to understand this? And this is what has been told in scriptures, that this is a physical body, which is known as Sthula Sharira. And there is a subtle body, which is called Sukshma Sharira, which has all your tendencies stored. So after that, the physical body disintegrates into the 5 elements, but the subtle body, which is like your software, your memory, it continues to exist. And it moves from one body to another.
Right.
Now, this is a little bit of an over-exaggeration that it is flying through space. Who said it's flying through this space? And flying through time. I mean, on this earth, you know very well that space, time, and causality is one dimension, but this time in itself has its own ways. I mean, the experience of time is different at different levels. And it is proven. So, there's a lot of exaggeration I see in this message. But what is important for us to understand is it's not very difficult to understand.
Right.
Software can interact with the hardware. The Sukshma Sharira can interact with Sthula Sharira. It's okay.
And we also spoke about a similar analogy saying that the subtle body is like the software, whereas the physical body is the hardware.
Yes.
And the prana is the electricity that sort of...
exactly.
Yeah.
Seeing it in our daily lives.
Yeah.
If you're open to this perspective, it's okay. If you're not open, you're not open. It's okay.
Yeah. To
Fine.
each his own.
To each his own.
Perfect.
But there's enough and more work which has happened on this, so it's okay. I mean, it resonates with you, it doesn't resonate with you, it's fine.
So on those lines where we were talking about, where the Sukshma Sharira is what transfers, I think that, is a good leeway for my next 2 questions.
Right.
Each of our DNA contains our memory, right? Our physical and our mental attributes. So if everything gets passed down to the DNA, so to my generation, to my children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, then why do we even need to talk about Jivatma, especially if it is to some unrelated person?
Okay.
Right? That was one person's comment. And another, which was quite similar, so I've clubbed it. Memory is physical, not transcendental memory, right? It is stored in the brain's neurons. If brain damage happens, like say, suppose Alzheimer's or any kind of brain trauma, if it erases these memories of this single lifetime, how can they survive death and how can it be transferred to a new body? Since memory is not separate from the brain's physical structure.
All right.
Right? So there's no mechanism by which it can persist beyond death.
Right. So in both the questions, the similarity is that somewhere we are attributing that the physical structure is creating the subtle structure.
Right.
That's what the understanding is. In the first case, the viewer is saying that you have a DNA structure and that gets passed on to multiple generation, and therefore your attributes can be passed on to your grandchildren. Fair point. And therefore we don't necessarily need to have this concept of your samskaras or your tendencies to travel from one body to another body which is completely unrelated. See, these are again hypotheses, right? One way it is absolutely right to say that the tendencies get transferred through your DNA, and we have actually covered that in great detail when in the episode where we spoke about collective karma, that you do inherit your parents' information,
right,
both at physical and mental level. Now, if that was the case, then someone who's an identical twin, raised out of the same parents in the same environment, should have the same tendencies and the inclinations. But is that the case? The answer is no. And the general explanation to that is that in case of identical twins, still there is a difference. Maybe because the synaptic connections randomly chose to, rewire itself in a different way, or there might be some subtle environmental changes. So you can't completely explain that. A lot of things cannot be explained clearly from genetics. And that is where the concept of the tendencies makes sense. Because if an identical twin are having slightly different tendencies and temperament, it can be on account of factor which is beyond DNA. And that is where I'm not using the word soul again, I'm talking about, that's where your Sūksma Sharira comes into play, because that travels. When I'm saying travel, one should not think that it's traveling in the space. It manifests.
Right.
In this place, yeah.
Right. So what about the idea of that the brain is that what is holding the memories? The physical brain is that what is holding the...
I'll just answer it in two parts. The first part is that if you lose your memories because of Alzheimer's, then how does the memory get transferred from one life to another? The answer is the memory doesn't get transferred. The tendencies get transferred.
Not the memories.
Not the memories. It's the tendencies. That's what they call it, samskaras. Right? That gets transferred. It's the tendency, not necessarily the memory the way we think it is. And there are some subtle memories which do go with your samskaras as well. And the second point here, that the brain is responsible for your memories, and when the brain is lost, everything is lost. So that's a very different way we have to look at it. So here we are trying to say that we are like a tape recorder where all the music is stored. Once the tape recorder is destroyed, the music
is gone.
But the Vedantic perspective is not that. From a Vedantic perspective, we are like a radio where the music is transmitted through us. So if there is a physical damage to the radio, the music will not get transmitted.
But it's still there.
But the music has not got destroyed because your radio has got destroyed. The music is still there. And the music will transmit itself through another radio.
Right.
So that is Vedantic perspective. So the music is your subtle body. It's your samskaras, it's your tendency. And we have discussed about subtle bodies in detail. So, there are two different perspectives. The neuroscientist basically talks about a possibility again a possibility that the brain leads to all your mental activities, but Upanishads have a view that the mental activities expresses through the brain.
Wow. So I like that radio and the tape recorder example. So even if there is damage to the physical, it doesn't really stop the music, right? It doesn't affect the sukshma sharira.
Yeah, the music is not lost. The
Music is
sukshma
not
is not
lost.
lost.
Right.
Only your body is lost.
And it sort of manifests itself through another physical body.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think in our discussions also we've spoken about this, about how destruction of the physical body, or like you just mentioned, the radio, doesn't mean that the music is not there,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I think that also perfectly answers the question.
Right.
So this leads me into a next question, which I found very, very interesting. In fact, there are two questions, I've just clubbed it. And I've given you a glimpse of this earlier. If souls transmigrated, then the human population should be constant. Right. Instead, it has increased exponentially where there are extra souls. Where are these extra souls coming from?
Right.
Right. That was one question. And then similar question was, sir, please shed some light on the multiplication of jivas over many centuries. At the early civilization time, let's say that there were 0.005 crore of jivas on the earth. But in the recent Kumbh Mela, it witnessed a footfall of over 62 crore jivas. So from where were these new jivas created? It's a very logical question.
Okay. So there is a basic assumption that when the earth started, the head count of jivas were X, and it should remain X because the evolution of that X is happening. That's basically the assumption over here, isn't it? That we
Yes.
started at a specific time with X amount of jivas, jivatmas or soul or whatever you want to talk about it,
And they are just getting reborn.
reborn, and they are and that should continue. So where are these extra stuffs coming from? Okay. So we have to basically challenge that assumption on the first basis, because this is not the first creation. There has been infinite amount of creations which has happened.
Creations as in the universe.
The universe was born, sustained, and dissolved. So that has happened infinite number of times. So there are infinite amount of tendencies or jivas which is waiting for itself to find out a right place and a right time to express itself. So the expression of jivas right now is not about when it started. This is happening from infinite time, and not everything manifests every
This
time
life.
in this life. So you cannot necessarily come out with that mathematical structure. That is one level to understand this. And the second way to understand at a more Advaitic perspective is that this entire universe that you're experiencing right now is a part of your Vyavaharika level, which is not an absolute reality. It's a relative reality.
Right.
The best way is to understand through a dream example. When you sleep, you create a dream universe, isn't it? And in dream universe, you can create
It is
as
your
many,
real.
that becomes your reality. And there you can create as many number of jivas if you want to, and as many number of people you want to. It has no meaning of. So the law of karma makes sense when you are basically coming at a Vyavaharika level. So when you are talking about a Vyavaharika level, let's understand that this is not the first creation. There are infinite creations, infinite jivas, and a finite of them are manifesting now, and it will manifest later depending upon right time or right
So
condition.
finite are manifesting now, which means there is an infinite which
Yes.
is still in potential.
It's still in the potential form,
Okay.
because this is not the first creation which has happened. But that is more from a Vyavaharika level. But from Paramarthika level, this entire system itself is a illusion. This itself is a not necessarily an illusion. We call it mithya. That it appears real, but it's not real.
That is the definition of illusion.
Maybe we call it mithya here. And then you can create. So this mathematical probability that we are discussing about can be explained from these two levels,
Hmm.
whichever level makes sense to you.
Right. So it's the karmic cycle is still happening for the finite number of jivas that have manifested in
Yeah.
this universe.
Yes.
Okay. Something to think about. All right. So as long as we're talking about rebirth, I think that comes to our next two questions. A viewer says there's no empirical evidence for rebirth, right? There is no controlled study that provides any sort of verifiable proof for past life memories under scientific conditions. Another viewer also similarly, he says, I think we have answered this question saying that it is beyond science. So they have also said this beyond science argument is a logical fallacy. Saying that rebirth is beyond science is an escape mechanism to avoid scrutiny.
All right.
Right? They say if something interacts with the physical world, right, because karma affects the physical world, then it should be measurable. But if it is immeasurable, it has no real world consequences.
Okay. There are 2 points. One is the scientific way of understanding rebirth, and second is that when we say it is beyond the scientific scrutiny, we are trying to escape the scrutiny. Okay. So let's break this a little bit more. And since it is beyond science, if anything reacts with the physical world, then we should be able to measure it.
Right.
So, few things we have to understand here. Let's take let's take in a very simplistic manner. If you close your eyes and if you think about a flower, today the science cannot tell you that you thought about a flower.
Right.
At best, it can only measure the neural activities of your brain.
We spoke about
it, right? So does that mean that the flower did not exist in your mind?
No, it of course
It was a reality for you. Just because science is not able to measure that flower which you imagined, and it is only able to measure the neural activities of your brain, that doesn't mean that the flower does not exist or the redness of that flower. Similarly, if you experience certain thoughts, you really think that today science can measure thoughts? It only it can only measure some neural firing somewhere here and there, but the thoughts that you're experiencing every moment, that is truth for you. But just because the science cannot measure it does not, you can't say that it has no meaning today. The thoughts basically creates your reality, the very reality, the way you talk about it, but it cannot be measured. So how are you making a statement that something which can be only measured by science is only is true, or not only true, it affects your life. It does affect your life, your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, the feeling of love, the feeling of hate. It affects your reality, doesn't it? Can it be measured? It can't be. No way. It's a very in-person experience. We call it qualia. It cannot be measured by any instrument. So that's the first thing. The second thing, when you're trying to say that when we are saying it's beyond science, we are trying to escape, the answer is no. This is the fact. Where is the question of escapism? I mean, look at it. They were 1,000 years ago in our own scriptures, they were talking about the time dilation. They were talking about space curvature, saying that space is a positive material. At that point of time, someone would have come and said, I want to use my scientific instruments to say what you're saying. You can't, because science was not prepared enough to even understand what was being said, what time dilation is all about. Today we are talking about it. I mean, these things were told some 3,000-5,000 years ago. So what are you trying to say, that just because science can't prove it, it does not exist? 300 years ago, science could have not proven the existence of bacteria because there was no microscope. So what do you want to say? The bacteria never existed. Do you see this? Just because the quantum mechanics cannot be explained by Newtonian physics at that point of time and there was no way to measure it, then what do you say? It is not there. So having such a hardline approach, it doesn't work.
Right.
And it is not escapism. It's a fact. You can't measure it. When you are coming to subtle bodies, you can't. Forget about the tendencies moving from one life to another. You can't even measure your thoughts, your emotions. You can't measure anything. And look, I'm not against science. I've told it before. Science is a very important field of study because it takes away a lot of superstitions. But whenever we are using a field of study, we need to know that what are its limitations.
Right.
Trying to put everything within it will not make sense. And there are a lot of listeners who are they're very eminent scientists, and they talk to me on a regular basis. In fact, they only tell me that, look, science cannot either confirm rebirth or reject rebirth because it is outside the scope. Someone who is truly a scientist will understand what they're saying, that it is not within the scope. We're kind of trying to push the limits too hard. There are things which is possible, there are things which is not possible.
Right. We've already spoken about
We've spoken at length, and we need to understand this.
Yeah.
And then if you may ask that, why is it that, then why should we believe it is not in the scope? We really don't know whether it is a superstition, whether it is faith, or it's a reality. Then use a process called Shruti, Yukti, Anubhava. We spoke about it. Shruti is basically referring to some sources which you really believe in. Yukti is use your analysis. I mean, what is karma saying? Karma is saying a simple thing, that every action that you do will have an outcome, and it will also have an indirect outcome in your mind, that it will create an impression. It's like habit formation. You do certain things, you physically do it, but internally also you create certain impressions, and those impressions will make you do something again. So it logically makes sense, right? And third thing is Anubhava. Can you experience rebirth? Maybe you can't. But in Patanjali Sutras is clearly said that when you get into certain meditative states, you can actually see your samskaras, you can actually see your vasanas and infer that this is not of this lifetime, this is of multiple lifetimes. Even Buddha also saw his multiple lives. If you want to invest so much of time and energy, you can please go ahead and do it to see it for yourself if you want to have this first-hand direct experience. But otherwise, does it make a logical sense using Shruti, Yukti, Anubhava? The answer is you can. You can make a case for it. In fact, there has been studies which has been done by Jan Sevinsten. He was a scientist himself. You cannot completely conclude it as a proper scientific evidence because it's not easy to do these kind of experiments. But you can't completely say it does not come in the purview of science, and therefore,
it's not true.
It's not true. Then we are limiting ourselves.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things which has been told before science even could make sense of it. And today we are trying to say, okay, all those things were right.
Yeah. And the reason why I keep agreeing is because we've already spoken about
it.
Yeah, we have spoken in detail about this, about how science still doesn't have the sort of bandwidth to measure a lot of things. So why are we only questioning rebirth? Why are we not questioning things like, why can't science measure my thoughts? Why can't science measure
why should question
my feeling of hunger? Those kind of things science can't measure, right?
It can't measure, but it's there. You can experience it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is a good leeway to the next question as well. Again, sorry that I'm going on bringing up the rebirth
okay, you
questions.
need to be sorry. It's okay.
Right? So, again, spirituality does not require rebirth. One can live an ethical, fulfilling life without believing in rebirth. There are many philosophies and modern spiritual traditions that focus on mindfulness, kindness, self-improvement without requiring an afterlife, right? So rebirth is often used as an excuse to justify suffering, which is bad karma, instead of addressing the real problem. So that viewer also says accepting randomness makes us more proactive rather than fatalistic.
So I can basically see there are three layered questions here. The first, to lead a fulfilling ethical life, you don't
need to believe in rebirth.
Second is that the rebirth is causing a lot of, it's making you fatalistic. Is that what one is trying to say? Right? And third is randomness is a better theory than basically saying if things are happening, this is happening for a specific reason. Is that what we are trying to say?
Yeah. And saying that rebirth is used as an excuse.
As an excuse. Okay. To answer the first point, that to have an ethical life and a fulfilling life, you don't need to have the concept of rebirth. But you see that we are actually finding ourselves contradicting here in the previous question that you asked. You said that give me a scientific proof of rebirth. Now, if I were to ask you, give me a scientific proof to say that if you lead an ethical life, you will have a fulfilling life. Can you? Yes or no? You can't. You can say, okay, it is a part of my experience. This is what has been told. So when it comes to all these moral points, at that point of time, we are not asking for a scientific perspective.
They're using the Shruti Yukti and Anubhava.
We are using Shruti Yukti Anubhava here. Right. So, but when we talk about rebirth, suddenly we jump into this thing and say, I need
Proof.
scientific proof. But in a lot of things during our daily life, we are not using a scientific proof. So, what does rebirth tell us? That rebirth tells us that you are born with certain tendencies and you to work through those tendencies by following a certain set of actions. Now, even if you don't believe in it, and you believe in the fact that we are born with a blank slate, and I am going to basically lead an ethical life to live a fulfilling life, fine. Both of them are, from your perspective, both of them are beliefs only, right? And both of them do not stand a scientific scrutiny. So on what basis are you making a judgment that this is a better belief than this belief? It is your belief. Now, coming back to the second point, that law of karma basically is making you a lot more fatalistic. See, that is where the misunderstanding comes into picture. Most of us think that I do good, good will happen to me. I do bad, bad will happen to me. We kind of drawn a very linear, and we sort of conclude that is my karma. Doing good is good karma, doing bad is bad karma. And again, I'm repeating that the actions that you do is not necessarily your karma, it is coming out of your karma. Karma is a system. The system which is unconscious, which is you are not conscious of, which is basically driving your thoughts, your words, your actions, your behavior, your tendencies.
Right.
Right? And every action that you do either builds on to those tendencies or it helps you relieve those tendencies. That is how karma has to be perceived. So where is the question of fatalism over here? There's no fatalism over here. Karma, if you understand clearly, leads to a lot of self-awareness. You start asking what in me is making me think, feel and drive a certain way. Isn't it?
But I think they're sort of asking, why can't I just accept that it is all random?
Fine. If you're happy with it, you accept everything as random and it is not based out of karma. So we did this thought experiment. Suppose you have prepared for an exam and you went and wrote the paper and you did very well. You felt, okay, I have written the paper very well. And tomorrow the teacher comes and says, sorry, you have failed. This time we are not going to give the marks basis what you have written. We have randomly chosen who are the students who's going to pass and who are the students who's going to fail. So how does this randomness help you accept things better?
Right.
How do you take responsibility when you feel that everything is random? Then what you do is, if you feel everything is random, isn't it that I would want to always protect myself because I don't know, because the action that I do has no ramifications of what will happen in the future. Things can happen randomly, so I should try and protect myself. So randomness, from my perspective, creates fear and the need for safety. All the time you need to accumulate more and more and more and more. And science is all about randomness. And that is why materialism has become so prevalent today, because we do not believe in the idea of cause and action. We feel everything is random, so let us accumulate as much as we can. I'm saying give karma a chance. See it for yourself, that how your actions creates your present reality and the reality which will manifest itself in future.
So I think I would say that rather than saying that karma is what makes you fatalistic, if I think about it, the idea that everything is random sort of makes me fatalistic. Thinking that anyway it's all random, so
What's the use of
what's
doing
the
anything?
use of me doing anything?
Let me protect myself. Let me
Yeah.
accumulate as much as we can. Let me have a very good bank balance. Let me have a big house. Let me have more number of stuffs inside. Because everything is random, it can go away anytime.
Exactly.
So
Wow.
it creates more fear.
Yeah, and I think we've discussed this a lot, and the only reason is because the questions were interesting. That's why I brought it up.
Sure.
So I think the next one says that karma is equal to kangaroo court. I mean, I have to Google this. So it's just essentially like an illegal court that doses out punishment, I think. I mean, which civil society will pronounce judgment on you after taking away all your memory? And there's a similar question which says, if I don't remember my crime, then why would I be liable for the punishment? So there are many more questions like this, and I think we've exceeded today's time limit. And I will definitely take up these questions and a lot more questions in the next few episodes.
All right. And these are interesting questions, and we should. And to our viewers, if you find these kind of conversations interesting and you'd like to be part of our workshops, please register yourself in the link which is given in the description below. And if you like these content, please like it, subscribe it, and share it with all those who can benefit from such interactions. See you very soon. Thank you.